Well, good evening and welcome. I think we're going to start tonight because we want to start on time so that we can get out on time. The meeting will run from now until about 8:15. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming in tonight and for also electing to run for school board. It's a big step, and thank you one and all for being with us. We are recording tonight's program just in case one of the members that could not be here would be able to see what we talked about so that we wouldn't have to reconvene. And so, we've also had a request from members of the press that if they wanted to watch the proceedings, if they could in their own time. So the mics are on, and just want to give you first an overview and a purpose of the session. And really it is, and although we're sitting at the big table, because some of you said, why aren't we sitting informally? It's just to give you an idea of what the board's role is. We do this every 2 years or whenever we have a special election, so that every candidate has an opportunity to not just know what an individual building does in the district, but to have a district perspective on what some of the other departments do. It's not meant to be the beginning and the end all of everything you need to know to run for school board or to be on the school board. It's just an overview. As part of tonight's presentation, the chair will talk a little bit about the role of the school board, and then each of the directors in the district will give you a brief presentation on what their department does. And there'll be time at the end of each presentation for you to ask questions if you have them along the way. So it's meant to be a dialogue, not a series of presentations, much like when we do a board meeting. And at the end, there'll be some time for questions and answers. It would be real good, though, if we probably went around the table and introduced ourselves. I know some of you know me, some of you don't. Some of you know one another, and some of you don't know everyone. So I'll start it out again. I'm Kathy Kelly. I'm the superintendent. I've been in the district since 1998, and I'm going into my 9th year as superintendent here in Columbia Heights. John?
Hi, everybody. I'm John Larkin. I am the school board chair currently, completing my 3rd year on the chair and working on completing my 3 years as a board member. This is my 1st year as the board chair, so welcome.
Good evening. My name is Hala Asamurai. I've been a Columbia Heights resident for 15 years. I am a parent of 4 kids, and I work for Minneapolis Public Schools.
Hi, Jennifer Lane. I grew up in Heights. I graduated from Heights. My daughter currently goes to Valley View. My son goes elsewhere. But I think that gives me a good perspective of different districts. So.
Tim Utes. I moved over here in 2005, getting out of Minneapolis and Hennepin County, come to the nice community of Columbia Heights and Anoka County.
Tanisha Kirk, 2 years living out here, worked for Columbia Heights Public Schools for 3 years. Currently, I'm a juvenile correctional officer, and I have 1 child at Valley View.
I'm Natty Severson. I have lived in Columbia Heights for the last 14 years. We have 3 kids, 2 at Columbia Academy and 1 still at North Park.
Very good. Thank you all. You'll be meeting the directors as they come up, so we'll save those invitations and introductions for a little bit later. In your packet, if you're a concrete sequential, which means you're real procedural, you probably looked at the packet, opened it up, and have it all memorized. But if you're not, we will be going through the packet a little bit at a time. On the right side of the packet, beyond the agenda, you will find some facts and figures about our districts. It's the district demographics, and as part of the overview, I'm not going to dwell on them, but it just talks about the schools we have and the enrollment, the free and reduced lunch count, our ethnicity, and demographics for 2014-15. So that is there for your information, and we won't dwell on it this evening. Right now, I'd like to pass the baton to School Board Chair John Larkin to talk a little bit about the role of the school board.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm not going to take a whole bunch of time. There's a brochure that talks about running for school board. I would encourage you to take an opportunity to read that somewhere along the way, and I'll kind of hit the highlights of what the role of the school board is. and I'll read under the fundamental roles. It says, "School boards are most effective when members focus on the big picture, making policies, setting goals, and engaging stakeholders, all with the ultimate goal of improving student achievement. When boards focus on administrative issues, school districts suffer. Divided boards lead to a divided community." And underneath that, just highlighting, developing a vision for the district is a major role of the school board. You'll hear a lot about whoever ends up getting elected through the training. You'll hear a lot about governance, and you'll hear a lot about policy. Last time I had an opportunity to speak with the candidates, I shared my perspective of the adjustment that it has been for me for sitting on the school board. My role in my regular job is I'm a supervisor, I'm a manager, I'm hands-on, and I always in the thick of things, if you will. And having to take that step back and recognize that you have a superintendent that runs the district, you have phenomenal directors that you place your faith in, and as a school board member, you again help with the vision of the district, and there's vision cards and things that you would learn about, but driving the district and making sure through oversight and policy that you want to make sure that what happens is what's best for the students. And I think that's the biggest role, is recognizing that you want to have what's in the best interest of the kids. And again, I would encourage you to read this, but outstanding school board members are motivated by the best interests of all kids. They're committed to governance training. Strong communicators, willing to listen again. But just read through that. Probably does a way better job than I would do. But again, the one piece that I would share is, recognizing that depending upon what you do in your normal life, that it's a lot different when it comes to governance and policy. It's a huge paradigm shift, if you will. So that's pretty much my highlights of what I think it is to be a school board member. So.
Any questions for John? Thank you, John. As far as the overview of the school district program and operations, on the right side of your packet, there's a green sheet in there that has an organizational, and it starts with the board as being policy and governance. And that's a little bit about what John just covered. And they supervise really one employee, and that is the school superintendent, which is me. And then I myself directly supervise 13 people. You'll meet the 7 directors tonight, and then I also supervise the 5 principals. And then there's an executive assistant to the board, and that's Dawn Hoyam, and she could not be with us tonight because she's on medical leave, but she supports the board, and she serves as the elections clerk as well. And so she should be back by the end of the month, and you'll have more interaction with her, but that's why she's not here tonight. And so many of you may know 1 or 2 or maybe more of the principals, but at the high school we have Principal Dan Robleski, and he's a veteran principal now. He's in 3 years under his belt. Principal Dwayne Burkus is in his first year at the middle school, but not new to the district. He's been both a teacher, a coordinator, and a director of teaching and learning before that. Principal Michelle DeWitt has been in the district for 8 years over at Highland, and Jeff Sosik has been in the district for quite a few years. He started out as a special education coordinator and then moved over to North Park. And then Principal Willie Fort has been at Valley View for, I think, about 5 years now. So that's the principal lineup. And then the rest, as far as the directors, I think what we'll do is just tee off right now and begin with Casey Mahan.
Can I interrupt?
Certainly.
I didn't get a packet, so I didn't get to look at the organizational chart. But
Okay.
I just wanted to touch on that first piece while Casey gets set up. Is another important piece of understanding as a board member is there's 6 people that sit on the board, and everybody has their own thoughts and ideas and opinions. And when it comes down to making a decision, it's the group makes a decision, generally speaking, via the majority of the vote. And recognizing that there's 6 of us that oversee the superintendent. It's not just me. I don't get to be her own boss. It's a group that makes decisions, and then that information is passed on moving forward. And as we move forward, I may not agree with the decision that's been made, or someone else on the board may not, but in a perfect world, the expectation of the board is that you move forward as one, and that the decision's been made through a majority, and that you move forward and support whatever that decision is. And I think that's critical and that's important in understanding when you sit on the board. And keeping in mind that, again, everybody gets to have their thoughts and their ideas, but once the decisions are made, that you're supportive publicly to where the board directs the superintendent to go. So that's it.
Thank you. Casey's teed up, but one of the things that the board really directs the administration and focus groups in the community to do is develop a core values, a mission, and a strategic roadmap. And the last time we did this was 2010, and our mission statement is up there, and I think most people are familiar with it. We create worlds of opportunity for every learner in partnership with supportive small-town communities by challenging all to discover their talents, unleash their potentials, and develop tools for lifelong success. And we are very fortunate in this district to work with 3 communities, and that is Columbia Heights, Hilltop, and Southern Fridley. And so we like to believe that we live the values on a daily basis and that we walk the talk so that the children can believe in them as well. Casey's going to take it over. Casey is our Director of Communications, and he's going to take us through really the strategic roadmap, which I believe is in the packet, which alludes to the core values, what we intend to create, and the focus of our time and resources. So with that, Casey, I'm going to pass the baton to you.
Good evening, all. Is this on?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. Night. As again, we're going to start.
Hold on one second.
It's on now.
Is it on?
Yep, you're good.
Okay.
Good evening. We're going to start out with our core values, and in all of our presentations and in all of our communications, we always start out with a mission statement and follow with our core values, and we normally align our presentation to one or more of the core values, but because of what we're doing tonight, one can safely assume we're covering them all. In your packet, you should have the strategic roadmap, and as the superintendent said, you'll see our mission, our core values, our vision, and our strategic directions. And as it applies to the communications department, under strategic directions, we are the E. So the communications department currently is Casey Mahan. And I have been here for a little over 2.5 years. The communications department was reestablished July 1st, 2013, and part of getting the department organized was we brought in a National School Public Relations Association communications audit, and from that findings we created the 2014-2018 Comprehensive Communication Plan, and that supports the strategic roadmap, core values, vision, and of course the mission. And again, specifically as it applies to this department, it's strategic direction F, tell our story, brand development, reputation management to increase partnership and enrollment. In terms of the purpose, we are here to advance the strategic roadmap and to build, maintain, and enhance public understanding and support for Columbia Heights Public Schools, and our responsibilities include communications, advice, and support, and that is at all levels, media relations, external, internal, and crisis communications, branding, marketing, and advertising, and for governance, we're aligned to Board Policy 905, video, still photography, and educational TV. We're responsible for the website and the social media, employee and school board newsletters, publications, and community involvement. And part of those publications, as Superintendent Kelly said, you'll find in your packets. This is part of our branding as well as our marketing, and every school as well as our athletics and activities department and also our transition program have these, and these are used to provide to new people who are coming into the district, and all the schools have those. We also do publications to include the calendar and the annual report, The most current annual report is now at the printer and is scheduled to be distributed to homes next week. There's a lot more, but that in a nutshell is your communications department. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Why does under the list of responsibilities, does it not include parental communication?
One, probably I missed it. Two, a lot of that parental communications works out of the schools. I support the schools with parental communications. One of the things that's in the communications plan is the news, consistency of school newsletters, and that's one. But I work with the school principals in terms of whatever communications they have.
Okay.
And we have 4 of the 5 schools right now that have the new newsletter, and they're all of them are online. And we're trying to go as much as possible online electronics for our communications.
We've included all of this in your packet because we know that some of you may know some schools better than others, but if you've had kids who've gone through multiple of our schools, then you probably know them all inside and out. But just in case, we just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of all of the programs, so they are there for you to take a look at. Any other questions for Casey?
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Next up is community education, and that is headed by Director Kristen Stunkel. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Good evening. As Superintendent Kelly mentioned, I'm the Director of Community Education. There are many programs that fall under the community education umbrella. The first we'll start off with is the Early Childhood Family Education Program, otherwise known as ECFE, and that's a program for parents and their children from birth to 5 years of age that takes place here at the Family Center. We provide early childhood screening. All children before they enter kindergarten need to go through the developmental screening, and we provide that service. That's located also here at the Family Center. I should say that that's not a test in order to get into kindergarten. If you're 5 by September 1st, you can enter kindergarten, but it's just a tool to see if the child needs any extra support in order to be ready. Our pre-K program, we have a pre-K 3 program that takes place here at the Family Center. It's a 2-day-a-week, 2.5-hour-a-day program. We have 4 sessions of that. And then our pre-K 4 is now located in each of the 3 elementaries, located in the area right by the kindergarten. It's the curriculum, instruction, and assessment is aligned with kindergarten, and that is our pre-K 4 program. That meets 5 days a week for 2.5 hours a day. We have child care through community education. Our preschool child care is called Mini Adventures. We have 2 classrooms. That takes place here at the Family Center, and that's for children 33 months of age until the age appropriateness for kindergarten. We also have a school-age child care, and that's called Adventure Club, and that takes place after school at each of our 3 elementaries. Adult enrichment classes, those take place throughout our district. Those are the yoga, cooking, handwork, various classes like that serve to enrich adults in our community. I like to say that everyone can be a student of Columbia Heights Public Schools through community education, and that's certainly one way that adults can. Another way that adults can participate in our school district is through taking classes through Adult Basic Education. We collaborate with Metro North, Adult Basic Ed. That is located at 4111 Central. That's an opportunity for adults who are working on their English skills, math skills, writing, computer skills to take classes free of charge. And that is in collaboration also with Fridley. So it's the Columbia Heights Fridley site located at 4111 Central. We have the Highlander Exercise Room. That's the west end of the Highlander Center. That's opened Monday through Thursday in the evening and Saturday morning, where adults for a very nominal fee can make use of the weights and the treadmills and ellipticals. We have Blooming Heights Edible Schoolyard. That's located just behind this building. It's a wonderful opportunity for students from early childhood through 12th grade, and then actually through our adult enrichment class also, to do hands-on learning in the garden, but it's also with early childhood through 12th grade tied to curriculum and in science, math, writing, etc. And that is supervised by Bonnie Lohman, who's our agriculture specialist. And then we also have Healthy Schools Initiative. We have the Healthy Schools Initiative, but we've also had statewide health improvement program participation in the past, and we hope again in the future, and that falls under community education. Community education's core purpose, as I've already mentioned, is really about supporting our mission statement as a district for lifelong learning. And as part of that, that is to really provide educational opportunities and engagement for all community members. The Community Education Department is involved, we have not supervision, but engagement with the Community Education Advisory Council. And that represents various segments and interests of our Columbia Heights Public School area. And that's a voluntary group that meets 5 times a year. In terms of your involvement, or the school board's involvement with policy and governance, as an entity within Columbia Heights Public Schools District, the Columbia Heights Public School Board annually approves policies affecting our community education department. It also goes through our budgetary process with our community education levy and annual budget. And then there are times that grants that we are applying for need to come forward to the school board for approval. And then we also give you an update on how those grants are going. Do you have any questions about the community education department?
Kristen, I believe in the packet there's something about community
Wonderful.
education. Do you want to just explain what
Sure.
this is in case people haven't seen it
And you've
before?
probably received this in your mailboxes twice a year. We send out our community education brochure. In that, it really is an overview of all of these programs that I've mentioned. That goes out in August for our fall programming, and then it'll go out in one of the last weeks of December for our winter-spring programming. And so in that, you'll find multiple pages of our adult enrichment, but also a sweet and condensed version of our early childhood programs. For families who have early childhood aged children, they receive a larger brochure that's specific to the early childhood programs. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes.
What kind of relationship do you have with the Immersion Hall Community Development, Community Education?
Not a specific relationship with Immersion Hall. We, in the past, have provided some programming there when our district had the 21st Century Grant, where with the Columbia Heights Recreation Department, they were partners with us with that grant, and so some of the programming took place at Immersion Hall. We have a very collaborative relationship with the Columbia Heights Recreation Department. In fact, their staff also sit on our Community Ed Advisory Council. But otherwise, we don't provide programming there as they provide programming through the Rec Department.
Are there any other questions for Director Stanko? Well, if not,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. And we have, Mr. Barrett has joined us. Welcome.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Would you like to just introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself? And
Yes, my name is Ken Barrett, and I live in Columbia Heights. I got 3 kids in the district, and I'm just kind of excited to be one of the board member, if I can.
Very good. Welcome. I'm Superintendent Kelly.
I'm John Larkin.
Nice to meet you.
And the other members just quickly want to go around in case you don't know one another again, just real quickly.
Tim Utes.
Jennifer Lane.
Hala Samurai.
Thank you.
Natty Severson.
Thank you.
Tanisha Kirk.
Nice to meet you all.
Very good. Welcome. Next up, we have Human Resources with Director Lindsay Bennett.
Good evening. From Human Resources, we have 4 people in our department. There's myself, the HR Director, Elizabeth Bruschi, the HR Manager, Aaron Schroyer, the HR Generalist, and Rebecca Miller, who I share a little bit with the facilities through Bill's office. He gets about 0.1 of her time, and I get the rest. So both Aaron and Becca, they do coach for the district, too, so they play a couple different roles within the district. Just some of our main responsibilities that the department does. We do background checks, so for all new hires, volunteers, student teachers, employee orientations. So every new staff member meets with Human Resources. We go through a entire packet. They feel like they're signing everything away, but to kind of get them that introduction to the district. Workers' compensation, so if anybody's injured on the job. We work with the job postings and recruitments, employment verifications, veterans preference, unemployment claims. Just a couple other ones, health and safety training. We maintain all the seniority lists, so for the teachers, food service, clerical, EAs, and custodial. Leave programs, so people who are on military leave or Family Medical Leave Act, we work on those. The OSHA log, which is the Occupational Safe and Healthy Act, that has to go out once a year, and that reports any workplace injuries we had. Any personnel issues, negotiations and contracts, job descriptions, recognition programs, staffing, which takes place every spring, and then the employee handbook. As a school board, each year I report out on Strategic Direction D, which is acknowledge and address tensions and opportunities for employments and partnership between employees. So that is reported out every year. In addition to that, Human Resources is responsible for policies in the 400 series, which is personnel related, which would include harassment and violence, Family Medical Leave Act, respect in the workplace. And then just some of the current projects we're working on as a department. We started this year doing a years of service. So we'd always had recognized staff for 20, 25, and 30 years. But now HR is getting out in the buildings and recognizing staff for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years. So we're getting out at the start of the year. We've been going to staff meetings and just kind of recognizing people and kind of letting them know who HR is too. Customer service training, myself and Director Hollaby with Student Services, we're implementing, it's the U of M Extension Office, and it's at your service. And directors have gone through it and principals, and then clerical staff will be going through the training in a couple weeks with the U of M representative coming out to do that. And then in January of this year is the pay equity report, which in the simplest terms, it's looking at if males and females and their pay for similar jobs. So that's about the easiest way I can describe it. There's a bunch of formulas that go into it too, but that has to get reported to the state. So that's HR in a nutshell, if there's any questions.
Any questions for Director Bennett? Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have Student Services with Director Nicole Hollaby.
I'm Nicole Hollaby. I'm the Director of Student Services, and this is my privilege to serve my 13th year in lucky School District 13, so it's going to be a good year for all, I'm sure. Prior to that, I was a teacher for 20 years in 2 other districts. So the core purposes for Student Services Department, special education, so any student from birth until 21 years old who is on an individual education plan in IEP who is eligible for special ed services, and all of the staff that support them, as well as all the state and federal laws and regulations around special education. I have Educational Support Services Coordinator Marsha Walker, who primarily serves in the area of special education. 504 oversight, so there's a lot of acronyms in my department, so I'll explain it and ask if you need any clarification. It's the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, and what that is students, and I work with HR if it's staff, that have an identified disability, but in the case of students do not qualify for special education services, but have a disability, they're eligible for a 504 plan, so I have oversight of that. Student discipline, so when we work on behavioral plans for individual students, for school buildings, the oversight with state and federal laws and regulations around suspension. I supervise the in-school suspension rooms and staff, and that work very closely with the principals on student discipline and behavior. Human rights, I'm Human Rights Officer for student concerns, and work with Director Bennett in HR regarding, she's the Human Rights Representative for employees. Health services, so that would include the school nurse, the health aides in the buildings, mental health services, as well as we have a grant that we co-wrote with Lee Carlson that has therapists that work with select kids and their families, and so I would oversee that program as well. Urban liaisons that work with families, and the urban liaisons have a college degree, so they serve as mentors to the students, and they work closely with the administration and with families in bridging the gap and getting families to attend parent-teacher conferences. They do home visits. And then the English learners, which used to be ESL, English as a second language, and then it was ELL, which was English language learners, but now it's English learners, and the reason ESL was dropped is because many of the families that come to us speak English as a second, third, fourth, even fifth language, so that's why it's called English learners. We have a large population, about 25% of our kids are English learners. We have 36 languages represented. And Jane Reardon is the coordinator in my department for English learners as well as family engagement. Family engagement is another area that I'm responsible for with my department. And this is an area that we have been growing over the last 3 years and made it a separate piece of the department. We do the REACH program, which is a program that reaches out to families who did not attend college. So they come through and they do a program, they have a graduation, and they learn about how to navigate report cards and the whole experience from K through 12 as well as into college. We have family nights. We did a powwow. We did Latino celebration with food trucks. So we really try to get all the families engaged. We work with PTOs. Whoops, sorry. What did I do? I'm notorious at mucking this up. Homeschool enrollment and regulation is the responsibility of my department. So every resident who resides in Columbia Heights who homeschools their child are responsible for certain forms and assessment that has to be done, and that comes through my office into the state. District representative for any parent concerns or issues that the principals feel that need to be addressed at a district level, not just the building level. Homeless education for any student and family that become homeless, that goes through my office, and I work very closely with the social workers in each building to ensure that, and the transportation department here in the district center, to ensure that our families who attend Columbia Heights are able to continue to attend Columbia Heights in concert with the state and federal laws. McKinney-Vento is the federal law for homeless students. Indian education, American Indian students who attend our school district. We have a federal program that is a cultural collaborative that we are in collaboration with Spring Lake Park and Fridley, in which we offer our American Indian students and families cultural experiences, as well as there is new money from the state of Minnesota under World's Best Workforce, specifically targeted and earmarked for American Indian students, and we submitted a plan to the state to be approved in order to get some additional money that just started this year to serve our American Indian students to close the achievement gap. Homebound, which is if a student is ordered by a doctor to receive their education from home, and home-based if they are placed at home and need a teacher to see them based on special education services. And then another program that I supervise that I'm very proud of is our placement center. And every year our placement center, which is here in the district office, enrolls every single student who comes into our district. Approximately 900 kids and their families come through every year and enroll in our district. And I like to say it's a one-stop shop where they come in, they're greeted, they're welcomed, and they're given assistance not only in enrolling in all the schools that their students may be going to, but if they come in and they say they've just lost their home or they need to know where the food shelf is, et cetera, it's really a wraparound service for our new families and students. The policy and governance that Student Services is responsible is for the 400 series, mandated reporting of child neglect, physical and sexual abuse, 500 series, student discipline, bullying, prohibition, protection and privacy of pupil records, the 600 series, the organization of the school calendar and school day, and then as well as all the federal and state assurances that surround the district that we have to ensure we're following the state and federal law. And then the budgets that go along with that, the entitlements and the grants. Student Services Department last year wrote 4 substantial grants and are very proud that we're able to provide additional services like Check and Connect, like mental health services for our students, as well as reading interventionists at the elementary level for our students because of grants that the state and federal government don't provide their competitive grants and county grants. Any questions?
I have 2. Is the placement, when the parents put their emails on the emergency form, is the placement center responsible for entering that into some sort of a database, or are the school secretaries?
So at one time, there was a disconnect about that. Last year, it was brought up by a parent, and there was not a spot on our enrollment forms for email because the school secretaries were collecting them, and there wasn't the consistency that we wanted. So now we've put them on the enrollment form, so they're entered at the placement center.
Okay.
If parents who are returning parents, if those emails change or whatever, that would have to be given to the building.
Okay. And then the, Mr. Awesome at Valley View said that he was on some sort of a family engagement committee. Is that something that you oversee?
Yes. So we have building level family engagement committees that meet, as well as a district family engagement committee. And the building levels generate what their needs are after talking to their PTO and their families and their staff. They come up with what they want to do at the building level, and we've allocated a budget to each building so that they can kind of do that independently, as well as we have district goals that we want to forward along with our strategic plan and our core values, that we then get those people together as a district and meet 5 times a year.
So then how do families and parents know who their building level people are?
Every building does a little differently, so you'd have to ask the principal, but in my experience, they work with the PTO. They work with key family members that maybe can't go to the PTO or don't feel, part of the PTO, but still have an opinion. So every principal has their key stakeholder parents that they work with and get the message to the family engagement. So please ask your principal, assistant principal, or dean, whoever's in charge at the building, to find out what people they tap into. But I know the teachers that sit on the family engagement, they are involved in a home visit program that we started last year. And they would talk to the families when they do their home visits to see what they're interested in.
And on the reverse, I would just recommend, not me as one parent to bring up something to one principal, but for the district and the board as a whole to encourage the schools and the principals to have a district-wide policy about that, and to have the building level people make themselves known to all parents.
Yeah, and perhaps they could put it out in a newsletter. There wouldn't be a policy around family engagement, but each building would have their own procedures. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. For the homeschooling, you said they have special forms for them. I mean, you have them in Spanish as well, and as well in other languages, just English, and then how big is that?
Yeah, it's available on the MDE website in 8 languages, I believe.
Okay.
And they're just a 2-page form that the family fills out. That also, there's a booklet that goes with it that, again, is on the MDE website, available in the 8 languages, that explain, how they can tap into curriculum, where they can get assessed every year.
Okay. Thank you.
So you mentioned that you offer mental health services. Is that on-site in the schools, and are we talking like therapy billable to insurance? How does that work? What kind of real-life access do students have to that?
So we have school psychologists and we have social workers at every building. And then also the grant that was co-written with Lee Carlson which is a local mental health center, nonprofit mental health center, is a state grant that's for 5 years. We're in the second year. And that provides a therapist at the academy and a therapist at the high school, and that is billed through insurance and through Medicaid. And those are referred kids, but the special thing of it is they also work in the home, and they work with the families, not just the students that they're assigned to.
You mentioned private schools or private home education, that you do assessments or testing or something?
Homeschools?
Oh,
Homeschool.
homeschool?
Oh,
So
homeschool.
if a parent homeschools their child, there's state regulations that they must provide an assessment for, annual assessment for them, and we submit that to the state.
And you only do that for homeschooling, not private schools, just homeschooling?
We don't assess them, we have to file with the state.
Right, but I'm talking about private schools too. You don't do private schools, you just do homeschooling.
We do, well, with private schools, we we funnel the private school, the non-pub aid, the non-public aid that goes through for their transportation, and perhaps Director Holmgren will discuss that, their counseling services and their health services. So those are the three funding sources that flow through the public school district to go to private schools that reside in the district.
Any other questions for Director Halaby? Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the Department of Teaching and Learning with Director Zena Standvig. Welcome, Zena.
Good evening and welcome, everyone. I'm here to provide an overview of the Office of Teaching and Learning. So I started out my career as a bilingual homeschool liaison and educational assistant. From there, I became a teacher, coach, both athletic and instructional, supervisor, and now I'm serving as the interim director of teaching and learning. Our teaching and learning team consists of Tara Tuckrell. She's our curriculum coordinator. Assistant Principal on Special Assignment, Adam Nelson, who's here this evening. He also serves as our District Assessment Coordinator. We also have Jennifer Babish, who's our Staff Development Coordinator, and then Wendy Bornaton, our Secretary, who manages us all and keeps us all in line and on time where we need to be. So the Office of Teaching and Learning really has responsibilities in these 4 major areas, and we collaborate with early childhood and then directly support kindergarten through 12th grade. So let's take a look at just a snapshot of curriculum. We follow an established curriculum development cycle, so that is approved by the board, and curriculum for every single content area. And we use an online curriculum software called Atlas, and Atlas is where teachers keep their lessons and their units and their assessments, and they update that on a regular or on an annual basis. Next, looking at staff development or professional learning. Last year, we offered over 430 opportunities for professional learning here on site within or inside the district. We work with the schools to deliver professional development in the 6 required areas for relicensure. So any licensed staff needs to fulfill state requirements, and we need to provide those 6 different areas. So, for example, professional development around differentiation, technology integration, literacy, mental health, English learners. All of those are requirements posed by the state. Also, our staff development, district works closely with each of the school buildings, and all of our teachers develop an individual growth and development plan, and so we look at all of the needs in all of those areas and then align it to our Pathwise, which is our evaluation system based on the Charlotte Danielson model. So we're trying to pull everything together and make sure individuals and schools and district-wide gets what they need. So taking a look at college and career readiness, really stems from a mandate by the Department of Education of Minnesota to create the world's best workforce. So we've listed a few items there for you. Early College is a new partnership that we have with Anoka Ramsey Community College. Last year was our planning year, and this year we've begun supporting our current ninth graders. So by the time our current ninth graders are in 11th grade, the plan is to have them prepared and taking, if they so choose, in class or in school during the school day here at the high school, Anoka Ramsey classes that will earn college credit. So if they do the entire program, they'll be able to leave the high school with an AA degree and their high school diploma simultaneously or concurrently. So that's exciting for us. Also, we identify our gifted students at an early age and then provide that academic rigor support, but then also work to balance out the socialization needs of our kids and in those, like I mentioned earlier, differentiated needs of our kids. We offer pre-AP and honors and AP classes or advanced placement classes beginning at Columbia Academy in 6th grade and all the way on up through 12th grade in a variety of subject matters. And then AVID is another opportunity that we have. It's advancement via individual determination. It's really a college readiness system that begins in 3rd grade and goes all the way up to high school. This has been an expansion year for us. We have expanded. Valley View has 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. We've just started this year at Highland in 5th grade and Columbia Academy in 6th grade. So we're looking at training more people and getting them ready. Really AVID, we've had it at the high school for several years, since 2008, and seen great success with the kids who participate in AVID. We're excited to expand it to the elementary level because that means it's a different model where all kids, instead of a select few, receive the AVID support and the college readiness. However, at our high school, for those who are not in AVID, we also offer Ramp Up, which is Ramp Up to Readiness, a college preparedness program offered through the University of Minnesota. So they're getting that through their advisory. Okay, and the fourth area is data and assessment. So we look at data as formative assessment, so that's progress checks as we go. So in class, in particular classes and subject areas, and then across the district in different subject areas, we're able to do common formative assessments that allow teachers to really assess where the kids are at and what progress they're making, and then adjust the instruction as needed. And then we also offer mandated state and federal assessments. This year, we have a testing time limit, so our kids cannot take the federal and state tests for more than 11 hours. So that's good. We want our kids to be learning new opportunities and different curricular areas and less hours and days of testing. So I'm pleased with that. So again, there's a snapshot of everything we do in teaching and learning. We follow the majority of the 600 series of the board policies that include, curriculum and instruction and assessment. We oversee some grants entitlements, including Title I and Title II, and then state and federal assurances that apply to this area. So if there's any questions about teaching and learning.
Director Stenvig, would you mind, in the packet, we have both the life skills and the college and career readiness pathway. Would you mind just taking them through that, if you would?
Yes. So this is a two-sided document, but it really goes hand in hand together. They're not two separate documents. On the one side, you'll see the pathway, which outlines the college and career readiness benchmarks, all the way, beginning from early childhood all the way up through high school graduation. This was a collaboration among departments, community members, all of the schools, and leadership. It was a long process to narrow down the focus and then get community input in terms of how are we going to publicize this out on our website. So currently, you will find the pathway on our website in a clickable format, so you can drill down into each of those areas and read more and get more information and more resources. So this is really our guide for what are the college benchmarks beginning at an early age. So, the little ones, the 3-year-olds, all the way up. What do we need to do each step of the way to make sure that they're ready? And we know that they can't do that unless they have the life skills. So on the back side, we've outlined 11 life skills. that we're working with our staff across the district so that our kids can really articulate what does persistence mean? And what am I doing? What are my actions as a 6-year-old, as a 10th grader that demonstrate persistence so that I know by doing that I'll get to my college and career readiness goal. So you'll see the 11 life skills. Again, that was part of the same committee that pulled together the 11 life skills, and we use it as our guide.
Thank you. I think I saw a hand up over here. Yes. Hi.
So I have 2 questions. The first one, quite simple. Is Ramp Up the same as or related to Gear Up?
I'm not sure if Gear Up comes out of the University of Minnesota. We work with Kent Packel out of the University of Minnesota for Ramp Up to Readiness.
Okay.
So it's an advisory program. My understanding with Gear Up is I know kids get backpack and they go do college visits, but this is a little bit different.
Okay.
So what kids during Ramp Up, during advisory, across the entire high school, depending on their grade level. So 9th graders would need a different information about college than 11th graders do. So that's...
Okay. And you mentioned early college being available to incoming freshmen. What about kids who are already in the other grades, 10, 11, 12?
So
do
we
they
do
also
have-
have that opportunity, or is it too late for them?
We do have some students who participate in the post-secondary education options program, and that's available to, students can apply for that at the high school. Anyone can apply for that. In order to provide early college, we have a partnership with Anoka Ramsey, and so we're in the planning phase. Like I said, this is the first year we're rolling it out. We want to make sure that by the time the kids get to 11th grade, that they're ready for it. So that means this year students are receiving an additional math support class if needed, and next year those students who need it will receive an additional reading and English support class. So by the time they're in 11th grade, they're doing college level work. So this year, we don't have offer a college in the schools class through a partnership with our police department on criminal justice, and then we offer, like I mentioned, PSEO.
Okay.
In addition, we have a wide range of AP classes in which many of our students routinely either take enough classes to skip the first year or 2 years of college. So it's really a choice menu for our students at this time.
Do you handle the MCA testing? Is that the testing you're referring to?
That's one of them,
That's
yes.
one of them. All right. I work with a lot of people who are in that young family phase, considering purchasing houses, and they ask me about Columbia Heights, and their first question always revolves around comparative MCA scores. That's the litmus test for people. I'm just curious, as potential future board members, how would you tell us to sell Columbia Heights with the comparative MCA scores that exist?
Right. So I really look at MCA scores as one snapshot. We try to
As a teacher, yeah. I get
Right.
it.
We try to triangulate our data and focus on growth of our students, right? We do have a large English learner population that they do make it there. They might not be there in 3rd grade, but they do make it there. One selling point for Columbia Heights is that small town feel, that small town community, where at a high school of our size and a district of our size, as someone who works at the district office, I know many of the families, I know some of the, many of the students' names, so we're able to provide that. The support that we provide isn't separated, it's close, it matters. And then opportunities for the students, you can, when you get to the high school or even the middle school, you can participate on the football team and be in the play and be in robotics. I mean, you can just do so many things. We don't cut a lot of kids from our activities. They're able to, participate. And that's very different from some of the larger surrounding schools where a lot of our kids that I know, I've got teenagers at home, maybe aren't able to participate in all of the activities.
Thanks. I also have if I don't mean to hog that, you oversee curriculum as well?
Yeah.
Can you just take me through the process of, say, my kids were in the era of Read Well, and I hear that's passing, that's on its way out. Is that Is that a thing? Or can you explain, like, how does a curriculum come into play, and then how do we measure the success of that curriculum, and then how do we make decisions to move away? Is that?
I want to pull up my curriculum cycle. I'm looking at Brian. We have a 7-year laid out curriculum cycle that is approved by the board. It's on our website in the 600 series of the board policies. Okay. If you click on the curriculum one and scroll through, you'll see the details there. And that does involve a planning year, a study year, implementation, and then progress monitoring and checking. So for example, this year we are in our second phase of elementary math. And so we will have 18 teachers across the district piloting math curricula out there. And then there's a process that they go through to determine a selection, if need be. We look at the standards. Sometimes we deviate from the, rarely, but sometimes we deviate from the laid out 7-year curriculum cycle because of a standards shift. And so in order to comply with state standards, we need to shift it. One thing that has been successful in the last few years, we're in our 3rd year of our leadership teams. And so we're trying to distribute the leadership. So it's not me coming to the school saying, here's your curriculum and now implement it. But it's really pulling together teacher leaders at each grade level. So take elementary, for example, since you mentioned Read Well. We have a literacy leadership team, team member at every grade level and a rep from every school. And they come together and meet across the district to talk about successes, challenges, look at best practice. And then they also, with our support, provide some of the professional development in their building. And so we can take, when we're looking at a curriculum, say that's in their 1st or 2nd year, and we need to add to it. Remember, curriculum is a tool that we use to meet standards, right? So if there is a need, that team can help us make those decisions and then make the tweaks. So that's what we've done a lot with Read Well in terms of keeping the phonics pieces, but making sure that we're adding a mini lesson and ensuring that we have comprehension at early grade levels. And so the teacher teams, along with the leadership, are working together to do that. Long answer, sorry.
No, that's great.
I'm passionate about
trying to learn. Trying to learn.
Okay. Yes.
I just have a question. How do you accommodate high IQ students? And do they have to follow the same curriculum, or you have something else just for them?
It's a variety. At an early age, we assess students using 2 assessments, one called the NNAT and the other called the COGAT. And currently this year at elementary, we are piloting a multi-age classroom of gifted students over the last few years in our elementary classrooms. We've clustered students and differentiated instruction with co-teaching so that we can really deliver and meet the needs of the students. They do have accelerated texts and curriculum. We also, in math, use Schoology, which is an online, it's not a purchased math curriculum, but the teachers create lessons. And so using some of the online pieces, students can accelerate at their level in math. And then at the secondary level, beginning in 6th grade, students can take pre-AP and honors courses, which are at an accelerated level.
Thank you.
Tim?
I have a question on the college and career readiness. I want to just set aside the career aspect because it wraps itself around a college, I think, a lot, like you talked about law enforcement. Where do you guys work at as far as vocational preparation and training, as in wood shop or auto mechanics or that type of occupation as far as a district? I hear a lot about college and career, but that whole aspect of working trades or whatever, working occupations as of working, I guess, would be with your hands. I never hear anything about that. So where does that fit into the puzzle currently with the school district?
For me, this is another selling point for Columbia Heights. My husband is a mechanical engineer, and so this is an area that's near and dear to my heart. When No Child Left Behind came along and many districts did away with such, technical career and technical education, Columbia Heights kept them. We kept the arts and we kept our career and technical education. We currently have much of the lower level of the high school is taken over by our career and tech ed department. They have a plastics lab, they have mechanics, they have aeronautics, they have engineering, that the engineering classes partner with the physics teacher, and they have 3D printers, Oh gosh, I know I'm going to forget something. Plastics, auto mechanics, engineering. Oh, we have a wood shop. So with updated equipment, we have a TV production class that is co-taught between our engineering tech ed teacher and an English teacher, and they produce our morning announcements at the high school, along with a lot of other projects. I'm looking at the superintendent if I'm going to forget any of our.
I think one we're branching out into is agriculture, agribusiness. And so with the onset of Blooming Heights and with a strong career program, we'd like to do some pairings around that so that it's not just I'm going to grow up to be a farmer, but what are the fields in agribusiness? So those are other hands-on and applied and could be conceptual skills and jobs as well.
And we have traditional business courses as well. Another thing we offer is a program called Genesis Works, where students who have, 11th and 12th graders who have enough credits or who are ahead in credits, they have the opportunity they apply for some training over the summer, and then they commit to going and doing a paid internship at major corporations around town. So a lot of our students go to Medtronic or Target Corporation, either in the morning or they leave school early to do that. So they have that opportunity as well, and they loop back with our business teacher who checks in with them and makes sure that they're just checking in with them to see how they're doing. They come to school all dressed in business attire, and so we are offering all of those. Plus different foods classes as well.
I think that's a great question. I just am wondering if maybe that's something that Casey can promote a little bit. I know that I feel like I've been a very, very active parent for a few years now, and I'm oblivious about this piece that you just talked about. So as a community member and parent, I mean, to know that the school does, like aeronautics and engineering, has the 3D printers is a huge selling point, and I'm surprised it's not advertised more heavily, considering how much focus we put on advertising and all that. So.
One more, robotics.
Yeah.
Can I just add that, having worked with other schools and other districts, really I was impressed with the selection of the non-traditional electives. I was really impressed with that as a parent.
Agree.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Stenbeck. Next up, we will have Technology and Security with Director Brian Hadekitz.
Good evening. As Kathy or Superintendent Kelly said, Brian Hennekins, Director of Technology and Security. And tonight, I'm just going to start with when we were developing the life skills in our career pathway, we also were embarking upon developing a technology plan, which we developed with some of the same group at the same time. It was about an 18-month time period where we developed all of those pieces. And so I'm not going to go through the whole thing step by step, but I'm just going to kind of highlight the broad areas. Everybody's looking at me like, oh my gosh, sit back. So we do have a philosophy around technology at a district level. I know at the building levels, they've kind of developed maybe their own little take on this, but we believe that technology is a critical tool for excellence by engaging all students, families, and staff in collaborative and innovative learning that is equitable, efficient, and effective. And when we look at our 4 areas, we're talking about relevant and authentic student learning, digitally enhanced world-class teaching, connected and engaged parents, and operational systems and service excellence. So those are the 4 key areas that we're talking about. And technology is really supporting all of these components. So when Nicole's talking about parent engagement, yes, technology plays a role in that, and we're there to help support that. It's a tool. We're not necessarily doing that ourselves in the department, but we're supporting that through the technology that we have available. So in each of those areas, like I said, I'm not going to go through all of it, but when I talk about relevant and authentic student learning, things like Director Stenbeck talked about Schoology. and that we're using as a tool. K-8, Moodle is a tool that we're using in high school. And those are tools where we can digitize our curriculum, where teachers can customize their curriculum. So those are tools that's kind of what we're talking about, that relevant learning. Our personalized learning plan, our personalized learning initiative, and the plans that go along with that. And those pieces are developed with our one-to-one initiative. So right now we're grades 5 through 8, and the current capital projects levy that we just started this year is helping to expand the funding of that. So I'm sure you've heard a lot about that. Digitally enhanced world-class teaching. We're talking about tools in the classroom that the teachers have. We're talking about the staff development component. So we have technology integration specialists in the district that are helping with that. Connected and engaged families, I use that as an example already, how technology is a tool, and that tool helps us connect to those families. Operational systems and service excellent. We can have things, we can have tools, but if we don't have proper bandwidth for our students, if we have 1,500 devices and I don't have a proper connection, then they're great paperweights, because it's extremely important for our students to have that connection to the world now, because it's more of, everybody hears the term cloud-based, everything's out on the internet and the cloud, and that's what we're using. Google Apps would be a really good example of that, or Google Docs, something that most people are familiar with. When I'm talking about that, there's 4 key things that we're kind of pushing with this plan, which is that personalized learning that I mentioned. So that personalized learning systems for all students. So we're working on personalized learning plans for all of our students. Differentiated professional development. It's talking about making our teachers, getting our teachers to a level where they're comfortable with technology in their classroom. Some of our teachers may not have grown up with technology the way our students are today. Some of us may not have grown up with technology the way our students are growing up today. So there's a lot of professional development. The tools are great, but they're even better when we know how to properly integrate them and use them in the classroom for learning. Appropriate bandwidth I talked about, and then equitable access to technology tools. And that's part of that one-to-one component. Some districts have gone into programs like bring your own device programs. I have an iPad, I have a smartphone, I have a Chromebook, I have a laptop, I have a MacBook, and just bring whatever you have and we're going to use it. And in our district, we wanted to ensure, when we talked about personalized learning initiative and moving forward with this one-to-one and that capital projects levy, that all of our students had equitable access to the technology. So everybody was on the same playing field. This is just kind of how it looks in a package, which is kind of hard to read. But when we looked at it, I know most people read right to left and top to bottom. But our district mission statement is at the very bottom. That's the foundation of this. So the plan is built off of that. So it's not taking away from the district strategic plan. It's building up from that. So that's the foundation. We just build up from that in our plan. As far as the department, just to kind of break it down a little bit, we do have 3 core areas in my department. The technology support area, so the team that really supports the stuff. They're very important in the building, and especially with the one-to-one initiative and making sure that the students' devices are working all the time as they're using them more and more in the classroom. Technology integration and security. Like I said, with the technology support, that day-to-day, that network infrastructure, again, making sure the devices have the connection that they need to support their classroom. And then new technology. So that team is testing out and implementing those new technologies. And with the technology integration, again, it's really working with the teachers in the classrooms. I mentioned earlier, I talked about coaching. It's coaching those teachers, helping them to properly use that tool in the classroom. And then that digital staff development. So, in the past, staff development has been a lot about everybody gets into a room, somebody stands up in front and presents, and here's all the information that you need, and then everybody walks away. And it's kind of changing that a little bit and changing staff development, offering some of those digital pieces where the teachers can, maybe they're going online, just like our students with that flipped classroom kind of concept. They're watching a video, and then they're meeting later, and they're working on what they've working on. They've already got the direct instruction, and now we're sitting down and we're working. And then security, and security is both physical security and data security. So it's about cameras, it's about card access systems, but it's also about protecting our data private information that's on the computer, so that the digital student information. And then we talked a lot about when we're building this plan about the 21st Century Student Outcomes and Support Systems, this P21 framework. And a lot of our focus in this area, as you can see, there's those underlining pieces of standards and assessments, curriculum, instruction, professional development, learning environments. But in the top, you'll hear in our buildings talk a lot about the 4 C's, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. And, those are we don't want to forget about other components like these life skills that we've talked about building, and, those technology skills or those core subjects. You can't forget about those things. But at the top, you can see those 4 C's, and that's a lot of our focus in the 21st century learning. And policies and governance in the technology and security area. We have our Internet Acceptable Use Policy. And then I talked about data privacy, protecting our students' data, protection and privacy, 515, pupil records. Also crisis management under that security side. We have our capital projects levy, which of course was something that was recently approved and we're very thankful for. We have grants that flow through technology. Right now, about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of federal grants. Maybe 5, 6 years ago, really, there was a lot of federal grants out there, and they've become a little bit leaner, more competitive. And then we have our Connected Anoka County agreement that's through the board. So it's an agreement with the county. We're on their fiber system, so it enhances our ability to share resources through the county. Any questions? Yes.
This is a building security question, and I just want to start with saying it's not that I don't feel safe here. I do feel like my children are safe. But they give us that little pass card to get into like Adventure Club, and we flash it to the lady and she opens the door, and that's wonderful, but they never collect them. So they start to stockpile at home, and I always wonder, well, what happens if, people are eventually not attending here anymore, and they still have the little card and they want to come in, and, the superintendent works in the building, et cetera. So it feels safer if everyone who you gave the cards to, eventually there was an expectation that you give them back after you no longer need them, or some sort of a collection.
We actually have changed that practice starting just September 8th, 6th, 8th, the start of the year here. Now we put dates on there. We actually are scanning IDs now at the door. Okay. And so the pictures go on those badges and their names.
Oh, good.
So it's very, very similar to what a district ID looks like now. So that practice has changed. So I think we were maybe thinking some of the similar things, that we needed to increase that a little bit because there was a gap there. So yes, we are doing that now going forward. So we just started that.
Good. I'm impressed.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I have a question about how do you support kids that are good at technology, but they don't have access to technology? How do you...
They don't have access to that talent?
Like they don't have a material to buy, anything to buy with it, like at
home?
Like at home, yeah.
So we had that one-to-one initiative at the middle school. Now it's grades 5 through 8. So one of the things that last year was a struggle for us as we sent devices home was what type of access do students have at home. So what are our expectations for the students as they take the devices home, and what realistically can be the expectations. In some of the classrooms, things that we tried were, you're signing work for home, but it's assigning work in a way that the device doesn't need to be connected. And there's obviously limitations to that. So if they didn't have connection at home, definitely know that it's unrealistic expectation for the students to, or it's not completely realistic for students to say, okay, well, you don't have a connection at home, but the public library has a connection, or these other places have connections. So there's definitely a gap there. We don't have a clear answer to that yet. One of the things that we are investigating is opportunities for partnering. I know that other school districts have done this. Bloomington was an example. I've just had a conversation recently with them. They partnered with a community. It was not a townhome community, but apartment complex community to get internet access into that community for all that lived in the community, because they had a large concentrations of students there. So we're in discussions with again, opportunities. We can't make any promises on how we'll be able to do that in the future, but we're definitely exploring what those opportunities are. Yes, giving the student a device is just one step, and we need to go further. We know that, but at this point, it's I think every school district's dealing with that, and we're just kind of all trying to work together to find what a solution would be.
Thank you.
Director Hennekes, do you want to talk about the Comcast?
Yes, I was just going to say, there are programs out there that do offer for low-income families a cheaper alternative to the high-end internet service. Comcast Internet Essentials is a program, and I know there was one other off the top of my head that is in the community that's available. But Internet Essentials, so basically it's $10 a month, and I don't know if you're familiar with Comcast's rate for internet for most people. It starts at roughly $60-some, almost $70 a month, and then if you have other services, they discount it a little bit. But this is a program where I think it's $9.99, basically $10 a month, and they also have an opportunity for refurbished computers. So for $140 is what they were last year. I haven't looked and see if the pricing had changed this year, but it was approximately $140 for a computer, and that's if you, so any free and reduced family, basically. So they go off of the school district's free and reduced forms, basically. Yes.
It was mentioned earlier, the personal data is uploaded to a cloud-based information system or something once a year or something?
No, it's not necessarily uploaded. So like our student information system isn't necessarily hosted here. It's hosted with an organization called TIES. So TIES, our student information system, technically is a cloud-based system. So our student information is actually housed over there. We access it through the internet.
Okay, so the question I would ask you then is, with the different security breaches that have gone on, banks and credit cards, Target, those types of things, what protocols is the school district actually using to secure this data if it's out of control of the school district?
Well, it's a good question. The reality is partnering with an organization like TIES offers us better security, better opportunity, because it's an organization like that, they're pooling resources in, so they have a higher capability of protecting the data than actually we do internally. So it's actually of a benefit to us for some of these systems that we can have a more robust system, we can have a more secure system, we can have more layers of security when we're partnering with basically many school districts in a consortium like the organization of TIES. So there's actually a lot of benefit to that. Now, we do have our own standard procedures and protocols for our internal. We have our standard firewalls, we have our standard content filters, our standard spam filters, and we have all those systems in place to protect the data that we have. Is anything impenetrable? No. I mean, like you've said, banking information gets compromised, but usually how that banking information gets compromised is I trick you into giving me your username and password, and then I go in and get the banking information. So it's educating our staff and making sure that we're protecting against those safeguards as well. So we do take a lot of steps towards that, and it's a big part of what we do. But as far as that organization of TIES goes, that's an extreme benefit for us in that area.
Do we have any kind of agreement with them as far as security does the school district have something on that order, some kind of agreement with them as far as security
We have
protections and
Yeah.
getting data
Yeah.
swiped?
So,
Not that
for
somebody's gonna get
example-
a password, but like Target was 3
yeah.
million, it wasn't just a password getting handed over a lunch table, it was a breach of the
So
security
they have an
system.
audit. They have an audit once a year that does. They have a security audit once a year. So they have to conform to a certain level of in order to provide a service like this, just like any company would. They have to go through a yearly audit, and they have to pass, certain degree of level, and they report out on that every year. So to make sure that they're compliant with all of the pieces and that they've passed all of the security tests. And then we also have agreements with the state, because the state also has data too. So there's a lot of agreements that we have for who has access to what data and when. TIES has we have an agreement with the state, so when MCA data goes up to the state, that information can go from the state to TIES. So there are agreements out there for the flow of the information.
So the school district has a liability protection then when it comes to a security breach of the state or some other organization, or?
Not if ultimately, we're in charge of our student data, ultimately.
Okay.
We're
taking, the school is taking the risk by partnering with other people, with other organizations then, while there's
Well, I'm
still.
going to cut in on this, because I would just want to interject that we are TIES and TIES is us. That it's not an outside organization, it's a collaborative. It's more like a 916 that we collaborate around with special education. This week, collaborate around with technology, information, education systems. And so the school districts have actually banded together to form our own collaborative partnership. So we are owners in that, and it has its own board of directors that is elected by the owners in the corporation. So it's not like we're outsourcing it to a corporation. It is part of our collaborative partnership agreement. So they're an extension of the school district.
Yeah,
And
thank you. Thanks
that's
for
one thing
clarifying
that's a
that.
little bit different.
And they've been around for a long, long time.
25 years.
Yep. I think there's currently 48 members, district members.
So it's a little different, Tim, because it's.
No, I'm just asking the question because when I heard cloud-based and information was sent to another location, that's why I'm asking the questions about the security breach, the possible breaches or whatever.
Yeah, it's more,
So
when
he's the one he's the main lead on that whole issue, I'd assume.
Yes, he is. When I look at it, it's just that, in simple terms, from someone who isn't in charge of the technology department, I kind of look at it that we don't have enough information storage space on our own, but if we collaborate and pool our resources, we can send it to another building that does, in which they have our backup system, and then they have a backup for the backup. So if let's just say a thunderbolt came down from the heavens and took out all of our stuff right here, we'd still have something backed up in another building. I don't really even consider it a cloud, although many people do. It's just at the TIES building on Snelling and Larpenter.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? So it's another facility that we are co-owners of.
Yes.
So
Any other questions?
thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then, if there are no other questions, I think we're going to move on to Director Miller, who is the K-12 Activities Director. Matthew.
Good evening. My name is Matt Miller, and I'm the Activities Director for the district. This is my third year as the Activities Director. Before this, I was the Dean of Students for a couple of years at the high school, and then before that, I was a health educator for Minneapolis Public Schools. So the Activities office is huge. It is myself and our Activities Manager, Sherry Holmgren. Sherry, she is the glue in my department. She holds everything together. She does a great job. Our activities office is in the Highlander Center. We oversee over 70 coaches and advisors throughout the year and the summer. And I'm going to deviate a little bit tonight and bring you to our website to talk a little bit of what we do and what we offer down in the activities department. Well, maybe we'll get there. I have a printout here. You also, I was going to talk about the brochure. So that's in your packets. Perfect. Here we go.
Matthew, what does that look like again?
We have to pass another levy.
Yeah.
Mine's 2, but it's a trifold. Perfect. And on the screen here is my website. So you can figure out all forms are available online, registrations online, all sporting and activities are online, information, coaches' information is online, our information is online. But I'm just going to click on the brochure that's in front of you. And Director Mahan has helped create this with just some pictures and what we offer here in Columbia Heights. So for athletic programs, we offer 9 varsity male programs and 12 varsity girls or female programs. We offer over 15 activities. Everything, and Zena stole my thunder a little bit, anything from visual arts to robotics. Zena, you did a great job. We have speech, knowledgeable, destination, imagination throughout elementary, middle school, and high school. So our job in the activities department is really to serve kids and create opportunities for every child to get involved beyond the classroom. Some other information about the activities department: we are a member of the Tri-Metro Conference. There are 10 members in that conference. Briefly, I'll share with you Brooklyn Center, Academy of Holy Angels, St. Croix Lutheran, St. Agnes, St. Anthony, Fridley, Visitation, De La Salle, and Concordia Academy. So those school members are part of our conference. So those schools we compete against. I'm also in charge of scheduling with all those schools for all of our programs. In charge of overseeing site supervisors and referees for all of our competitions there. Columbia Heights, we are a member of the Minnesota State High School League, so I represent us as a school district when I attend State High School League meetings. And another thing that the activities office does is we have an activities council, which we have community members, parents, coaches, administrators a part of, and I do that twice a year. And it is I am a sounding board for the community and for my coaches to look for opportunities to grow in my department. And that is it for the activities department. Any questions for me? Yes.
I was confused by something someone said earlier. I wasn't sure, is it where any student can participate in any activity, or do they have to keep up with their grades to participate?
Yep, so we follow the guidelines of the State High School League, so you have to be on track to graduate if you are participating in a State High School League program. So I also have those guidelines for activities also. So starting in the 9th grade level, you have to be on track, you have to be passing your classes to participate.
So like
And that's my office, we are keeping track of that. Every season, we go through every student athlete or student participating in the activities.
So if they're like failing 2 classes, but they're still on track to graduate, they get to play? Is that how that
Right.
works?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Correct. So if, for example, if I was in a math class and it was the middle of semester and I'm on track to graduate and I could end up passing that class with a C, you still can participate.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
So what about the preceding class? Like if you failed a couple of classes, I mean, you can still be on track to graduate, but if you had 2 Fs from the previous semester, are you basing that on whether or not they're allowed to participate?
Yep, so in our student handbook, we have a guideline of amount of credits you need in order to participate in that semester. So it's for example, if I decided I'm going to fail 5 classes, you will not be participating in that next semester. So if I was a basketball player, basketball starts in November. If I decided I didn't want to finish my classes and do my homework and study for exams, and I get 5 Fs, that means I will be cutting you from the program in January when grades come out.
So if they only had 1 F, are they still allowed to play?
It really depends on what your transcript looks like. So freshman year, I'll give you an example. Freshman year, if you fail 1 class, you would still be eligible to participate second semester because you'd have 3.5 credits.
So it's not on GPA, it's more
It's not on
focused
GPA.
credits.
It's on, I follow the guidelines of the State High School League, on track to graduate.
So is that common for all the schools then? Is that pretty standard? 'Cause
Yes.
I'm not an athletics person, so I'm clueless.
Yep. That's what the State High School League has adopted.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Any other
Matthew?
questions?
Are you the spirit wear guy?
I currently am, yes.
Is there a way that we can get some Highlanders on our spirit wear?
Yes. On your current apparel or new apparel?
I know they came out with the new apparel with the like
Yes.
Nike logos and
Yep.
stuff, and
So
some people love that, but I would personally kill for a Highlander on something.
Sure. So I'm currently working with a school store and creating a school store within our building. And then I'm collaborating with an outside source for a website, a new website for apparel. And there will be the old, or I shouldn't say old Highlander, but there will be a Highlander
Like a
placed on some,
traditional-
yes.
Yeah, old school.
That logo,
Love it,
yes.
like a ball cap.
Yes.
Sweatshirt.
Yep. There will be
Classy.
multiple things to purchase.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Matthew? Otherwise, we will proceed right to Finance and Operations with Director Holmgren. For those of you looking at the time while Bill gets set up, because we've asked questions along the way, we won't have a question and answer period at the end so that we can get on, out somewhat on time, although we're running about 20 minutes late. So let's see how quickly you can go. Dollar Bill.
Okay, we'll try to move fast. I got their extra dry material this evening, so that's why they have me going last. Otherwise, you'd be sleeping already. But let's talk about the finances of the district a little bit. First of all, here at Columbia Heights, our financial strength is very strong, very good. Since 2007, we've received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, the COE Award, and that comes from an independent organization, not only nationally, but worldwide. We're only we're about 20 districts in the state of Minnesota that actually received this award, and we have about 450 districts in the state of Minnesota. Right now, our general fund balance is about $3.9 million. Our unassigned general fund balance is at $2.4 million, which puts us at 9.4% of the previous year's expenditures. Our policy with the board is to have that number somewhere between 6 and 10%, so you can see that we're at the top end of that policy. We do have an OPEB trust in place. That's other post-employment benefits. So any money that would be needed for any of one of our employees retiring, if they receive any type of health severance, that money has been set aside for them. It's not something we have to pull out of the general fund. It's set aside in a trust for them. So, of course, for where I sit upstairs, my goal is solvency for the school district, and to definitely be very conservative when we look at our budgets so that we are not running in the red on a yearly basis. So what do we do up in the finance department? Well, we do all the reporting, we do all the budgeting, we do all the forecasting, all the purchasing for the district, which includes the payroll, the accounting. We track all the enrollment, so we know what the revenue is coming in from the state of Minnesota, involved in the contract negotiation with all our unions, and of course, costing of those contracts. Buildings and grounds, I oversee the building and ground department. Of course, that's all our facilities, our grounds, of course, our capital projects, maintenance of our buildings, our health and safety program. When you hear about, say, health and safety, it's health and safety of a building. It's not necessarily the people in the building. It's the health and safety of the building itself. And we also administer the new capital projects levy, which was just passed last fall. So we're very excited about that. Also oversee food service department. Of course, we feed all our students breakfast and lunch. We have a fruit and vegetable grant that we serve to our students in elementary schools. There's an afternoon school snack for all of our students still here after school. And of course, we do feed all summer long also. Other duties for my operations piece, of course, is transportation, oversee the whole transportation department. Our property insurance, and then our benefits, negotiate the benefits for our employees, for health, life, dental, LTT, and so far, and so on. We also, of course, oversee our 403B compliance with the IRS. When we talk about financial reporting, when it goes to the board gets a monthly report, and then we do a much larger quarterly report that goes out to the board. And of course, once a year, we do our comprehensive annual financial report, and that's what we get our award off of. So when we talk about governance, the things that the board sees, we look at a calendar. Our fiscal year starts in July. In July, we look at our health and safety plan. We have to have back to the MDE. We are a member of District 916, so we run the health and safety levy for 916 and their lease levy through ours. That's done in August. In September, we just talked about our preliminary levy for the next year. When you talk about next year, our levy, our pay 2016 levy, that's actually money for our 16-17 school year, because we're off about 6 months. In November, you'll receive an audit, and then in December, we'll certify that levy for the next year. And then in January, you'll get a financial forecast as we start our budgeting process, and then we'll revise the current budget at that point. When we do the first budget in June, we look at who we have in place, but by the time we get 6 months into the year, a lot of turnover and different staff, so we redo that to make sure that we're right on with that budget. And then again, of course, June, we're working on the next year's preliminary budget again. So we're kind of always working on 3 years in the finance world upstairs. So when we look at policy and governance, what comes to the board, of course, you set the levy. They set the food service meal prices, any bonding that we're working on, any borrowing, and then, of course, contracts like transportation contract, food service contract, so forth. And the policy that I'm involved in, of course, is Series 700, which is all our non-instructional operations, and the Series 800, which is all our buildings and sites. So I went through that awfully fast, but hope you get just kind of an idea what we do in the finance and operations.
Just a quick question. The legislature goes from February to May. So you wait till after legislative session's over to see where you are as far as revenue then? Is that why you have a June forecast?
We're, in the spring, we're running the budget all the time with new information we see from the legislature. Most of the time, the legislature's done in May, so then we have a month to put our budget together before we have to have it done by the end of June. But of course, like this last year, it pushed way into the end of June. So we have to take our best guess that what we think is going to happen. And then that's another reason we do a revised budget every year, because once we get into the fall, now we know for sure what revenue we have. We know for sure what kind of student numbers we have, enrollment numbers, because by far the 90% of the revenue that we receive is generated by the students we have in our buildings.
Any other questions for Bill? Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes really our overview of the district in a nutshell, and I want to thank you for spending additional time with us because we are a half an hour over. We want to wish each and every one of you the very best, and although the school district is not allowed to sponsor any campaign kinds of activities, there is a candidate forum, and Adam, the date of that candidate forum is? November 9th, and it'll be here in the community room, and it is sponsored by Local 710. And so you'll be receiving more information on that in the future from Local 710. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your evening.